Story 1: The Man Who Knew My Name. I hike alone pretty often. Not because I don't like people. Mostly because it's easier. No schedules. No waiting for someone who's still tying their boots while you're ready to go. Just me, a backpack, and a trail. A few months ago, I decided to spend a Saturday morning hiking a trail about 2 hours from my apartment. It wasn't one of those famous national parks. Just a long forest trail that locals recommended online. People described it as peaceful, safe, perfect for beginners. Exactly what I wanted. I parked around 7:30 that morning. The parking lot already had maybe 6 or 7 cars. A retired couple was unloading trekking poles. 2 college-aged guys were joking while putting on backpacks. Nothing unusual. I signed the trail register, filled my water bottles, and started walking. The first hour was exactly what I expected. Birds. Wind moving through the trees. The occasional squirrel running across the path. Every now and then another hiker would pass. We'd do that awkward little hiking smile. Morning. Morning. And keep walking. Nothing about the day felt strange. Around 9, I reached a small overlook with a wooden bench. I stopped to eat a granola bar. That's when I noticed him. A man maybe 50 yards away. Standing beside the trail. Not hiking. Just standing. At first I assumed he was waiting for someone. Maybe his wife was using the restroom farther back. Maybe he'd gotten separated from his group. I gave him a quick nod. He didn't nod back. He just watched me. It felt a little awkward, but not enough to worry me. People are weird. I finished eating and kept going. About 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy boots. Steady pace. I moved slightly to the side of the trail so whoever it was could pass. The footsteps stopped. I looked back. Nobody. The trail behind me stretched empty through the trees. I laughed at myself. Probably an echo. Or maybe another hiker had stepped off the trail. Forests play tricks with sound. I kept walking. Another 15 minutes. Footsteps again. This time, closer. Crunch. 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 I stopped. Silence. Nothing. I turned around, slowly. Still no one. Now I was annoyed more than scared. I figured there had to be another trail nearby that I couldn't see. That's the explanation I settled on. Eventually the trail narrowed. Tall bushes crowded both sides. You couldn't really see more than 20 feet into the woods. I remember checking my phone. No signal. Didn't bother me. I expected that. A little farther ahead, I noticed fresh boot prints in the mud. Same direction I was walking. Normal enough. Then I realized something. The prints weren't there a minute earlier. I would have stepped on them. Which meant someone had walked onto the trail behind me after I'd already passed. I looked back again. Empty. My stomach tightened, just a little. Not panic. Just enough to make me walk faster. A few minutes later, I caught up to a father hiking with his little daughter. She couldn't have been older than 8. The girl looked at me and smiled. Then she looked past me. Her smile disappeared. She quietly grabbed her dad's hand. I remember hearing her whisper, "Dad, who's that man?" I turned around immediately. Nobody. The father looked behind me too. He frowned. "What man?" She pointed farther down the trail. "He keeps hiding." Her dad laughed softly. Probably another hiker. Kids imagine things. That's exactly what I thought. I kept moving. The father and daughter stopped for water. Eventually I couldn't hear them anymore. Now I was alone again. About 10 minutes later, I heard whistling. Not birds. Someone whistling. Slow. Casual. Like they didn't have a care in the world. It came from somewhere off the trail. I froze. The whistling stopped. Complete silence. I told myself not to be ridiculous. Maybe someone had wandered off to take pictures. Maybe someone was camping illegally. I started walking again. Then, the whistling started again. Closer. Much closer. I picked up my pace. The trail eventually reached a small wooden bridge crossing a creek. Halfway across it, I looked down. Fresh muddy boot prints. One set. Standing underneath the bridge. Facing the trail. Like someone had been waiting there. Every instinct I had suddenly screamed that something wasn't right. I crossed the bridge almost jogging now. Another 5 minutes. I heard a voice. Calm. Friendly. Hey. I turned. The same man from the overlook. Standing maybe 15 feet behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. He smiled. You dropped something. I looked down automatically. Nothing. When I looked back up, he'd already taken another few steps closer. No, I said. I didn't. He smiled again. You sure? Something about the way he asked it. Completely calm. No expression. Made every hair on my arms stand up. I backed away. He kept walking. Not fast. Just matching my pace. I've seen you before. No, you haven't. Yeah. He smiled wider. I know your name. That made my blood run cold. Because my name was written on the trail register. The one at the parking lot. He'd seen me sign it. He hadn't known me. He'd read it. I turned and started walking quickly. He didn't run. He just kept following. Always 20 feet back. Never saying another word. I pulled out my phone anyway. No service. Of course. The trail split into 2 directions. I remembered the map. The left path was shorter back to the parking lot. I took it almost at a jog. Behind me. His footsteps sped up too. I didn't look back. Branches snapped somewhere behind me. Then I finally heard him running. That's when I ran. I wasn't thinking anymore. Just moving. I nearly slipped twice. Lost one trekking pole. Didn't stop. Through the trees. I finally saw cars. The parking lot. There were 3 people unloading bikes. I started yelling before I even reached them. **** help. The man disappeared instantly. I turned around just in time to see him step off the trail into the woods. Gone. Like he'd never been there. The cyclists called park rangers. They searched the area for hours. They never found him. One ranger asked me something that still bothers me. Did you write your full name in the trail book? I said yes. He sighed. Then told me several people had reported someone hanging around the trailhead reading the register. Nobody knew why. A week later, I looked up the trail's reviews online. Buried among hundreds of 5-star ratings, I found 3 different comments. Different years. Different people. Each one mentioned a strange man who seemed to know my name. Now, whenever I hike, I never sign those trail registers with my real name anymore. Because maybe it's only there for emergencies. Or maybe someone else is reading it first. Story 2. He kept appearing ahead of me. I've always preferred hiking alone. People think that's strange. But honestly, It's peaceful. You can stop whenever you want. Walk at your own pace. Listen to the wind instead of someone talking the entire time. Last fall, I drove out to a state forest about an hour and a half from home. The trail I picked was a little over 12 miles. Long enough to spend the whole afternoon outside. Not so remote that I expected to be completely alone. The ranger at the entrance even smiled when he handed me a trail map. "Pretty quiet today," he said. "You'll probably only see a handful of people." That sounded perfect. The first couple of hours were exactly what I wanted. The trail wound through pine trees. Every now and then I'd stop to take pictures. Drink some water. Check my map. Nothing unusual. Around noon, I reached a clearing overlooking a small lake. Only one other person was there. A man sitting on a fallen log. Maybe mid-40s. Gray baseball cap. Blue windbreaker. He nodded when I walked by. "Beautiful day." "Sure is." That was the entire conversation. I stayed for maybe 5 minutes before continuing. The trail eventually entered thicker woods. The trees blocked most of the sunlight. It wasn't dark. Just quieter. The kind of quiet where you start noticing every little sound. About 20 minutes later, I rounded a bend. The same man was standing ahead on the trail. Gray cap. Blue jacket. Hands in his pockets. At first, I assumed there must have been a shortcut. Maybe I'd missed another trail connecting to this one. As I got closer, he stepped off the path. Just enough to let me pass. Neither of us spoke. I smiled politely. He didn't smile back. I kept walking. It wasn't creepy. Just a little odd. Another half hour passed. No other hikers. No voices. Only birds and the occasional squirrel darting across the trail. Then I came to another overlook. Guess who was already there? The same man. Looking out over the valley. I actually laughed. "You move pretty fast." He looked at me. Blank expression. "I know these trails." That was all he said. Fair enough. Maybe he really did. I took a couple of pictures and left. This time, I paid attention. There weren't any side trails. No obvious shortcuts. Nothing. Yet somehow. 40 minutes later. He was ahead of me again. Standing beside a wooden trail marker. This time, something felt different. He wasn't pretending to admire the scenery anymore. He was watching me. Not staring exactly. Just waiting. As I walked past him, he asked, "You hiking alone?" It seemed like a normal question. People ask that all the time. Still, something about the way he said it made me hesitate. "Yeah." He nodded slowly. "Long way back." I forced a smile. "Guess so." Then I kept moving. For the next 20 minutes, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every time I looked behind me. Nothing. Every time I listened. Just wind. I started telling myself I was overthinking everything. He was probably just another regular. Maybe he hiked here every weekend. Maybe he knew every shortcut. Simple explanation. Then I noticed something. Fresh footprints in the dirt. Not behind me. Beside me. Someone had been walking through the trees. Parallel to the trail. Close enough that they could keep pace. Far enough that I couldn't see them. I stopped walking. The footprints stopped too. I listened. Nothing. No birds. No wind. Just silence. After nearly a minute, I laughed nervously. Probably deer tracks. Or maybe I'd imagined them. I started walking again. So did the footsteps. Not on the trail. Inside the trees. Matching me. Step. 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 Every time I stopped. They stopped. I pulled out my phone. No signal. I checked the map. The parking lot was still almost 3 miles away. I considered turning around. But that would have meant walking deeper into the woods. Instead, I kept moving. A few minutes later, I finally saw another family. A husband. A wife. And a little boy maybe 6 years old. The relief hit instantly. As we passed each other, the little boy looked over my shoulder. His smile faded. He tugged on his dad's sleeve. Dad. The father leaned down. What? The man. What man? The one hiding behind that tree. I turned around so fast I almost lost my balance. Nothing. The trail was empty. The parents looked confused. The father chuckled awkwardly. He's got quite an imagination. Maybe. But the kid wasn't smiling anymore. He was still staring into the woods. Watching something. Or someone. I kept walking. Faster now. Not running. Just enough that my breathing started getting heavier. Then I heard it. A whistle. 2 short notes. Behind me. I ignored it. A minute later. The same whistle. Closer. I finally looked back. There he was. The man in the blue jacket. Walking down the trail. Maybe 50 feet behind me. Not rushing. Not calling out. Just walking. Every time I sped up. So did he. I decided to test something. The trail curved around a huge rock formation. Instead of following it, I stepped quietly behind the rock and crouched. If he was just hiking, he'd walk right past. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Then. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. They stopped on the other side of the rock. Completely silent. He knew I was there. Neither of us moved. Almost a full minute passed. Then I heard him quietly say, "I know you're still here." That was enough. I bolted. I ran harder than I ever have in my life. Branches slapped my face. My backpack bounced against my shoulders. I didn't care. I just kept running. Eventually I saw the parking lot through the trees. 2 pickup trucks. A family loading coolers. Another couple taking pictures. I sprinted straight toward them. When I finally looked back, the trail was empty. The man never came out. Park rangers searched the area after I reported everything. One of them asked for a description. Before I finished, he nodded. Gray cap? Blue jacket? I stared at him. Yeah. He sighed. We've had complaints. Never enough evidence to identify him. By the time we get there, he's gone. I asked what he was doing. The ranger shook his head. We don't know. He never threatens anyone. He never steals anything. He just keeps showing up. I haven't gone back to that trail. Sometimes friends ask why I stopped hiking alone. I usually tell them I just enjoy company now. That's easier than explaining the truth. Because every now and then, I'll be walking through a crowded park. Or looking across a parking lot. And for just a second, I'll see a gray baseball cap. Standing perfectly still. Watching. Watching to see if I'm alone again. Story 3. Someone had moved my trail markers. I've been hiking for almost 10 years. Not because I'm an expert, I just enjoy getting away from my phone for a few hours. Most weekends, I'd pick a new trail, pack lunch, and disappear into the woods until sunset. I always followed the same routine. Download the trail map. Tell my sister where I was going. Carry extra water. Stay on marked paths. It had become automatic. So when I visited a small mountain trail a few hours from home last October, I wasn't worried. The ranger station was tiny. Just one employee sitting behind the desk. He handed me a paper map and smiled. Beautiful weather. It'll probably just be you and a few hunters today. Hunters. I wasn't thrilled about that. But hunting season had started the week before, and the trails remained open. As long as everyone stayed in designated areas, there wasn't supposed to be a problem. I signed the register, clipped the map to my backpack, and started hiking. The first hour couldn't have been more ordinary. Leaves covered the trail. The air smelled like pine. I stopped a couple of times to take pictures of the mountains. Every so often I'd pass a colored trail marker nailed to a tree. Blue. 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 Simple. Easy to follow. Around 11, I passed an older couple resting on a bench. They asked if I'd seen anyone else. Just you two. The man nodded. We thought somebody was walking behind us. His wife laughed. Probably squirrels. We all smiled. It seemed like such a normal conversation. I kept going. About 30 minutes later, I reached a fork. According to my map, I should have continued following the blue markers. Except, the tree directly ahead had a red marker. Not blue. I looked around. The next tree also had red. I frowned. Maybe I'd accidentally wandered onto another trail. I unfolded my map again. No. This intersection wasn't supposed to have another route. Only one trail continued. I convinced myself the map was outdated. Trails change sometimes. No big deal. So I followed the red markers. At first, everything looked normal. The path was clear. Fresh footprints. Nothing strange. Then I noticed something. Every trail marker looked new. The paint was brighter. The nails looked shiny. Almost like they'd been put up recently. I shrugged it off. Maybe the park had replaced them. A few minutes later, I heard someone yell. Very faint. I couldn't make out the words. Then, silence. Again. Probably hunters. Nothing unusual. I kept walking. About 20 minutes later, I found another trail sign. Only, it was lying on the ground. The wooden post had been pulled out. Not broken. Pulled. The dirt around it looked fresh. Like it had happened that morning. That gave me pause. I took another look at my map. Something wasn't adding up. The stream I was supposed to cross should have appeared by now. Instead, the woods just kept getting thicker. No bridge. No water. Nothing. For the first time that day, I felt uneasy. I turned around. I just retraced my steps. Simple. Except, the red trail markers behind me were gone. I stared at the trees. The ones I just walked past. Bare trunks. No paint. No markers. Nothing. I actually laughed. Out loud. I told myself I was looking at the wrong trees. People panic when they're confused. I forced myself to slow down. Breathe. Think. Then I noticed something nailed to an oak tree. A blue trail marker. Crooked. The nail was sticking halfway out. Like someone had hammered it in quickly. I walked closer. The paint was wet. I touched it. It came off on my finger. Someone had put that marker there. Very recently. I suddenly heard movement. Not far away. Maybe 30 feet into the trees. I called out. Hello? No answer. Just another crunch of leaves. Then silence. I started walking faster. Every few minutes I'd see another blue marker. Each one looked freshly nailed into a different tree. Not in a straight line. Almost as if someone was placing them while moving through the woods. Leading me somewhere. My stomach dropped. I stopped following them. Instead, I pulled out my compass. South. The parking lot was southwest. If I ignored the trail completely, I should eventually hit the access road. It wasn't ideal. But it was better than trusting markers that didn't belong there. I had barely walked 50 yards when I heard voices. 2 men. Quiet. Close. I crouched behind a fallen log. One voice said, "He went the wrong way." The other answered, "Doesn't matter. We'll move the next one." I felt my heart start pounding. They weren't talking about hiking. They were talking about me. I stayed perfectly still. A minute later, I saw them. 2 men walking between the trees. One carried a hammer. The other had several colored trail markers sticking out of his backpack. They stopped beside a tree less than 20 feet away. The man with the hammer pulled a blue marker off the trunk. Like he'd done it 100 times before. The other replaced it with a red one. Then they walked away. Calmly. Talking about where to place the next marker. I didn't move until I couldn't hear them anymore. That's when instinct took over. Forget the trail. Forget the map. I used my compass and headed straight downhill. Branches tore at my jacket. I slipped twice. Lost my water bottle. Didn't stop. After what felt like forever, I heard engines. Cars. Then I saw a gravel road through the trees. I practically stumbled onto it. A couple driving a pickup stopped immediately. Apparently, I looked as terrified as I felt. They drove me straight back to the ranger station. Park rangers and deputies searched the area for the rest of the afternoon. They found dozens of trail markers. Some nailed to random trees. Others hidden in backpacks buried under leaves. Several official signs had been removed from intersections. The investigators believed someone had been deliberately redirecting hikers off the marked trails. Whether it was meant as some twisted prank, or something far worse, they never said. No arrests were ever announced. A month later, that section of the forest was temporarily closed while every trail was inspected and remarkered. To this day, whenever I hike, I don't just follow the colored markers anymore. I compare them to my map. I check my GPS whenever I have a signal. And if something, even one small thing, doesn't make sense, I turn around immediately. Because the woods are confusing enough on their own. The last thing you expect is for someone else to be changing the path while you're still walking it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.